Greetings, everyone. My name is Richard Crevo, and I want to thank you all for viewing this YouTube video. And the video is going to cover briefly how I set up my charts for the daily drill down that I do each evening after the daily candle closes at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I check out the 28 currency pairs that I follow to see essentially if any of the 28 are setting up for what potentially might be a higher probability entry. And I want to share this with you in the hopes that you can learn more about technical analysis, chart reading, and how you can use it to help you understand what the charts are telling us. Price action tells us all we need to know. And what I want to do is show you how I implement that as I look at these charts. Now, let me show you now how I set up the charts and what indicators that I employ. The first thing you'll probably notice is that there are four charts here. I use multiple time frame analysis, and I have a weekly chart and a daily chart, a 4-hour chart, and a 1-hour chart that I have set up. And on each chart, I have a 200 period moving average, 200 period simple moving average, which is the green line on each chart. And what that's going to tell me is just the general bias on the pair in that time frame. If price action is below that 200 period moving average and moving away from it, selling is the higher probability way to go. If I see price action is above that 200 period moving average and pulling away from it, I know that buying is the better way to go, the higher probability way to go, on those particular trades. I also have something that might be new to some of you, but to the people that have been listening to me over the years, they're quite familiar with these, I'm sure, the Donchian channels. And on the Donchian channels on the weekly chart and on the daily chart, I have the Donchian channels set to 20 periods. And on the 4-hour and on the 1-hour chart, I have the Donchian channels set to 55 periods. Obviously, because we're under some time constraints here, I'm not going to get into a lot of the intricate details, shall we say, of why I'm using these and why I'm selecting 55 periods, 20 periods, and that type of thing. If you want to get information about this, feel free to email me at rkrivo, R-K-R-I-V-O, F-X, at gmail.com with your questions, as specific as you care to make them, and I will get back to you with an answer on that. That's one way we can go to resolve any questions that you might have. Now, lastly, because I like to keep my charts simple, there's not a lot on here, I have slow stochastics set to 15, 5, and 5. Now, what I'd like to do just quickly to show you how I use this is let's take a look at the Euro USD currency pair through this time frame that I'm using, and through the several time frames that I'm using here. Now, what we see is we have on the weekly chart, price action has made lower highs and lower lows, but it has just taken out a recent high on the weekly chart, not just, but a few candles back on the weekly chart, and it's beginning to build out to the upside. Slow stochastics is also showing strong angle and separation to the upside. So there's a definite bullish bias here, but until it takes out that upper Donchian channel on the weekly chart, it's still in what we would call an open sell position. Now on the daily chart, however, we can see that price has been moving down for quite some time. Let me enlarge that chart. Has been moving down for quite some time. And over the last several days, few weeks in that, price has been oscillating. It made a higher low right here. See, it was low there, it made a higher low here, and now it's taken out the upper Donchian channel. So based on the daily chart that I'm looking at, I'm only looking for buying opportunities on the lower time frames. So on the 4-hour chart, the way I would use the Donchian channels here and be looking for a higher probability entry into this trade is that upper Donchian channel. The previous high on the 4-hour chart is at 1.1391. So if I were interested in buying this particular pair, I would what I would do is I'd set a price alarm probably at around that 113.91 level so that I would be alerted when price got to that level. So then I could check and see whether or not I want to enter that particular trade, see what the charts look like at that time. How is the euro doing across the board? Is the euro strengthening across the board, or is it just on this one particular pair. And if I want to go down to a lower time frame chart, the 1 hour in this case, I could get in a little bit sooner into the trade. I'd go to the channel line at about 112.95, and I would set a price alarm at that level to check out the situation when that alarm went off. Now, if you want to be a little more aggressive, what a trader could do is they could set an entry order at that level as well to get them into the trade if they don't want to be bothered with the price alarm. Truth be known, if you're doing that, you're introducing a little more risk into the trade because you don't have the opportunity to, check things out a little bit before you actually get into the trade. Now, as I mentioned, if you have any questions on this is just a quick run through on how I do this. But if you have any questions on what I just covered, feel free to email me with those questions, rkrivo, KRIVOFX @gmail.com. And if you're not following me on Twitter, please feel free to do that as well. And that's at rkrivofx. Now, going forward, what my plan is to provide you with a YouTube video such as this once a week, where I'm going to drill down the charts, all 28 pairs, or perhaps just a few that might illustrate a particular setup or concept that catches my attention. And I'd like you to remember that the content of these YouTubes is provided for informational, educational purposes only. It's not intended, to be any kind of trading recommendation. I'm showing you what the charts are telling me on the Euro USD. I'm not advising you to trade the Euro USD, for example, because just, keep in mind, trading foreign exchange, this is the disclaimer part here, trading foreign exchange, it does involve a significant level of risk, and it's not going to be suitable for every trader, every investor that's out there. And as I've always said, you should only be trading with risk capital, money that if it's lost, it's not going to affect your lifestyle one tiny little bit. And there's absolutely no guarantee here made or implied that any trade analysis covered in this or any other video will result in profits or not result in losses. The content is provided for informational and educational purposes, as I said earlier. And as we go forward with this exercise, keep in mind that a trading setup is just that. It's a setup. It's nothing more. The setup may trigger, it may not trigger. And if it does trigger, it may or may not produce a winning trade. These setups are all about probabilities, putting the probabilities of having a winning trade in our favor. That's the setup, and that's what we're looking for. But the setup and its execution by no means assures a winning trade.